Oliver Trogemann will tell us about the creative process of Sentinels in Shards of War. It's a new MOBA game by Bigpoint. Please welcome him.
Thank you very much. First question, are there any artists present? Any artists? Okay, that works. All right, then let me just dive in. I think we are a little bit behind schedule. I will be talking about giving a little of an insight into the creative processes in creating Sentinels and Shards of War. Myself, my name is Oliver Trogemann. I joined Bigpoint 2011. I joined as senior UI artist, and currently I'm heading the entire 2D department. That's about 40 artists with 2D and concept art. At the moment, I'm advising internal and external projects, and of course hiring. So we're still looking for artists. If you're interested, find us at G6. Also feel free to connect on LinkedIn if you're interested. So, Bigpoint was founded 2002, so that's quite, I think, a history for a gaming company. About 500 to 600 employees at the moment across the world. One thing to mention that's quite interesting, I think, is that Drakensang Online, for example, we're just partnering up with Tencent at the moment. And you might know maybe other games such as Farmerama or Dark Orbit. Does anyone know Bigpoint at all? Ever heard of it? Okay, all right. That's okay. So the team, it's basically currently about 50 people working on the project with about 15 artists within the 2D and 3D animation and tech area, of which 2 are concept artists, basically doing both the conceptual work that I will show later and the final art illustrations. The game is developed in Unity. I think this is also quite impressive, especially when you see the effects that the team created. So, as already mentioned, the game is a MOBA game. Is any one of you familiar with MOBA games? Mm-hmm. It's a free-to-play model, which I like to really highlight because it's not pay-to-win in this case. It uses another monetization method, basically a cosmetic one, where you buy skins. At the moment, we've got 18 Sentinels. The number is constantly rising. We're producing Sentinels in a 4-week cycle. I will focus on that later. They are originating from 4 shards. That's basically like worlds. So every Sentinel is coming from a certain world. And we're currently having 2 maps. So let's have a look at the game real quick. Oh yeah, forgot that. 2 skins per Sentinel at the moment. This number is also rising. But I will also talk about skins later in the presentation. Yes, that was basically a quick insight into the game. Now, for you who is familiar with MOBA games, it's usually a certain mechanic. It's basically that there are 2 opposing teams. Then there's a so-called jungle, allowing like stealth strategies. And then there's usually the battle within the center, top and bottom lanes. we picked up this mechanic, and it provides an amazing opportunity for strategy decisions and a lot of battle. So this is the initial map, and if you take a look at it, looks fine, works. But now, basically, I just threw in the current map that has been released 2 days ago. This is basically showing the new map, and you already see, I think visually, it's quite obvious that there has been a bit more learnings, that basically went into that map. Like visually, it's conceptually much more sophisticated than the first one, and I'm looking forward to basically see what the team does next. Few features I really like to point out is, for example, the controls. Me myself, I haven't been playing MOBA games much before. I also don't like the fantasy setting personally, but this is why I kind of like the sci-fi stuff going on there, and I also like the controls, which is more, if you're playing, for example, first-person shooters, you might be more common to those. Also interesting is the customization opportunity. So for me, I'm currently playing Striker, mainly because it's, I think, the starter Sentinel, most easy to play because it's quite balanced. But I can basically customize that Sentinel to my personal playstyle more. So what are Sentinels? Sentinels, as I hopefully already mentioned, are basically like champions or heroes in comparable games. Those Sentinels currently take a total art production time of 4 weeks, and we're currently working on moving towards 3-week cycle, because we want to really increase to a large size of available Sentinels. Interesting to mention is that basically at the beginning of development, art and game design agreed on a more flexible, collaborative work cycle, because they didn't want to restrict the other part. So basically, it really depends on the special case, but they are really providing like equal ideas and development time. But of course, the regular workflow is basically that game design, basically comes up with a couple of specs which they want in the game. And this is followed by art that comes up with the visual concept. In this circumstance, I would like to show you a special case, and that was originally called Bigbot. This was actually the other way around, mainly because art wanted to test like different shapes and maybe even a maximum size of a Sentinel. This is why they basically tested a couple of models in the game, and when they were done, design basically saw it and was amazed and created Bastion. Another interesting thing, like before we went into the beta, we did a lot of reviews. And we noticed that many Sentinels that were created early, they didn't really work well with the setting that we created. So let's look, for example, at that one. That's one of the very early Sentinels created, and it doesn't really immediately strike you as a sci-fi character. But we already created skins for that, and in this case, what we basically could do in that case was we just switched it with the skin. So this is now the Sentinel, and the other one is the skin. This is working much better in the sci-fi setting. Same with Striker, for example. This was the original illustration for this Striker, and we switched it with the skin, now being the original Sentinel, basically. It's interesting to notice that skins, for example, they require individual assets as well as illustrations. They work as a communication tool for us to, focus or communicate immersion and story a little bit more than the models themselves can. This is why we basically chose to use illustrations within the game instead of real-time 3D models. We are actually classifying between story and fun skins. You will see what that means shortly. And basically, if we create a story or a serious skin or a fun skin, really depends on the special circumstance. Now, for example, take a look at Flatline. That's somewhat of a medic type, and this would be the skin. This is a story skin, obviously, because it works well with the setting that we're creating here. But if you look, for example, at Zell already works very well with the futuristic skin, and then we can also do something like this. In this case, this was basically an event where we used the skin for as friend invite sort of event in Facebook. Then we have Blitz, and this is the fun skin. And I personally like that, actually. Okay, but what's most important about the skins is basically that they keep the original silhouette intact, not only because you yourself maybe get used to a certain, like, Sentinel, you also want to be able to identify when you're in a game, your opponent. You need to know what kind of character it is. So the art director basically really tries to stick to the original silhouette of the Sentinel. As an example, for example, we can take a look at Striker. This is the original Sentinel that you can play. This is basically a skin. And you see here that basically the pose remains intact and the shape as well. Same as here. Another skin, Bastion. Does anyone know where the inspiration comes from? All right. And then Rhino. And anyone knows where this inspiration comes from? Probably not. This, I think, was also used in an Easter event. I personally like this one. Okay, a couple words on outsourcing. What's interesting to mention, I thought, was that the team basically started to view and test outsourcers, different vendors, because they really have a very high expectation of quality, and they didn't want anything to go wrong. So we basically reviewed vendors, sent them tests, and identified some really good ones, and you will see why this is important for us later. So what we're basically doing is providing rough ideas. From that, the outsourcer basically comes up with the final composition. And what we also did is we didn't just send them what we wanted. We also allowed them, for example, to make a suggestion themselves. And that was interesting because that came as a surprise actually for us, because giving them rather more than less freedom turned out to be a really good decision, because I don't know, if you're an artist yourself, then you basically set up your image, your drawing, your composition, with everything, with the whole picture in mind. And if someone comes around and says, move the arm down and the feet up, then usually this just turns the whole composition to crap. So it was really interesting, and we really had the best results in this case. Of course, sometimes we really did have to make changes because it just didn't work. And continuously feedback to the outsourcers, made actually the whole work much worse. So just taking this as an example, maybe. This came back from the vendor. I really like the dynamic pose here. There's some unclarity here going on, but in general, I think it has a lot of power, and you really feel that this, character is like breaking out of that prison thing. Now, what came back was basically this. Well, at first sight, you might think, yeah, that's fine, but if you could keep looking at it, it just didn't really reach the quality level, and it was basically the final submission that they made to us. So, not only does the hand not work, but also I think the whole impression, and also the face, is not really working well. So this is why I'm very happy to say that we have really talented artists in the team. So they basically fixed it. And I personally think it's really well done. So same here. That was quite funny, because if you keep looking at it, you will find that, for example, his hand is growing out of his shoulder. This is happening. I mean, this is a difficult pose because there's a lot of perspective distortion going on, and the artist, unfortunately, probably not super experienced, picked that pose themselves. And we were, of course, hoping that he picked it because he can work with that stuff, but it didn't turn out that well. Also, we felt that the face is not really communicating a lot of aggression and seriousness. And what also was stupid in our view was basically that the weapon is covered with shrapnel, so the silhouette of the weapon is not really coming out well. So what we basically did was another fix. I think this also increased the quality a lot. Funny enough, we used a reference from Hulk, because there's an image where he basically runs to the audience and grabs onto you, and this was a good way of really dealing with the perspective distortion that happens with the hand. Okay, to sum this up, basically, what we found out is that you really need great artists. It's as simple as that. The more changes, the worse it gets. And artwork is done when you say it's done. That basically means that our art director in the team, he will continue to work until the best result is basically arrived. And another funny story was that at some point it makes sense to give code names to your outsourcing artists, because the vendors will usually not give you the original names for known reasons. So we, in the end, we basically work with Tyron from Game of Thrones. Okay, but it's really important. That's, I think, that's the last part. 5 minutes is fine. So this is the actual process. What I like to really say is that we are really proud to keep the original creative work of the Sentinels in-house. That is something I think most exciting, because there's a lot of story background, a lot of creative work and strength going in there, and basically only outsource the skins. We currently have basically 2 concept artists, illustrators work on that Sentinel creation. And interesting is that there was one senioric illustrator, concept artist on the team at first, and then we paired him with a younger one, with a junior. And after a couple months, now the junior is able to basically switch. So that, he is sometimes doing the concept art, and now even starting to do the high quality renderers. So I think this speaks a lot about opportunities and progress that an artist can do in that team. To run through a quick example, Zell, that is basically seen as a real good example of that cooperation and work. Unfortunately, I didn't find a sample that shows a couple steps before. So at this case, the character is basically already pretty defined. The girl is pretty much set. He's experimenting a little bit with different clothings and already applying a certain color code to it. And the idea was to really give a super huge, super badass gun. But in the end, most people, were excited about the fact that she carries a huge gun, but the gun shape and everything didn't really work out well. So the concept artist, actually the younger one, started to create a couple of silhouettes to find different interesting shapes for that gun, and finished basically with a small selection of really nice ideas, I thought. For the clothing, they basically made a layered concept to really, it really shows that there has been a lot of thought into each and every element that this character has. Fun, again, for us that at Gamescom in Cologne, where the game is going to be presented as well, we'll have a cosplayer girl there, and she can basically take this now and build her costume. So this is basically the final concept of that character. I think it works exceptionally well. I really like the dynamic and the proportion, of that. I like the pose. I think the details that ran into the character was really great. And from this, the other illustrator basically created the final artwork. So yeah, that was basically it. Sorry. So yeah, this is a video showing a bit of this, the actual painting of the illustration. If you have any questions or are interested in any of our products or the products itself, feel free to find us at G6. That's right in the main hall. Maybe if you're interested in the game, I really recommend it. Go to this URL and test it. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Any questions, guys?
Thank you. I would like to ask one question. As you said, you make illustrations and concept art. As we can see, it's like three-quarter pose. Do you also have to make front view, back view, or top view for your 3D artist?
Absolutely, yeah. That's pretty much it. What we have to do, it's basically part of the conceptual phase. Once the character is designed from the content side, the concept artist takes it and basically builds those different views for the 3D artist to take.
It also included in this 3-4 week period?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there some melee fighters in Shards of War?
Say again?
Are there some melee fighters or only ranged characters?
Melee fighters, you mean?
Yeah.
Not really. There are some Sentinels that have a melee attack, but they're not really considered, I think, melee fighters at the moment. But I'm pretty sure this will be coming up soon.
Thanks.
Somebody else? Do you have any questions?
Don't you think that fun skins destroy the game for other players who don't have them? Because if you go into the game and you think serious about futuristic design, and somebody runs around in a bunny costume and he kills you, and then you're going to probably hate this person who bought the skin.
Yeah, I mean, there are different philosophies about that. We also discussed that in the team. Of course, there's the people that really go for the immersion. That's important. That basically everything works in the setting. I don't know. I have been killed plenty of times by one of those, and I really got into rage. But this is a little bit of the I think dynamic and tension that's arising in those games, and can't think of another game that does it that extreme. But I have the feeling that if I start to play with, for example, I'm playing Striker, and I play that for a couple months, then I might be, once I'm really good, I think it's quite the thing to basically choose something that people can identify you with a bit more, even those crazy skins. And as far as I know, the art director has even more crazy things in mind. So I think this won't be the last one. But you're right. I think in general, with the rising number of Sentinels and skins, we really have to make sure that the overall vision of the sci-fi setting, basically, and the immersion isn't lost. So this is definitely a topic that's discussed among the team.
Unfortunately, it was the last question, sir, guys. We don't have any time. So you can find Oliver on the booth. Yes, that's right. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.